the Sundown. Join in and be part of the show on iRadio, your eye on South Sudan. The Sundown. For the news, views, opinion, debates, and discussions. Listen to who is who talking about issues that affect our country and continent. Only on the Sundown, your eye on South Sudan.
Hello and welcome to the Sundown Show on iRadio with me, Madrama James. Today, Friday, 12th of September 2025, we take a look at this particular day. Marks 7 years since the signing of the 2018 Revitalized Peace Agreement in Addis Ababa. That accord was a turning point, bringing an end to years of war and raising hope for peace and stability in South Sudan. Over the past 7 years, the peace deal has delivered some historic achievements, including the silencing of guns and the return of relative calm to parts of the country. But many promises remain unfulfilled. Progress towards peace building, a unified national army as still and cantonment sites, once set up to separate troops, have been long abandoned. Today, we shall have a look at this particular occasion, a reflection on what has been achieved since September 2018 and what challenges continue to stand in the way of lasting peace. In the studio, I'm joined by Edmund Yakani, one of the signatories of the Revitalized Peace Agreement. Good to have you, Edmund. And today, we shall, of course, share this important day with you. Since 7 years back, since the peace deal was signed, let's have a look at your own reflection on this, and what do you see as the main achievement of the 2018 peace agreement? Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for hosting me in this commemoration of the 7th anniversary of the R-Access. I don't know whether we make it a full percent of happy R-Access, or we make it 25% or 50% R-Access, because the word happiness is a bit harder to link to R-Access based on the context we're in now as the country is facing political stalemate. So going back to what you have asked me about the assessment is that yes, for the early beginning of the R-Access, specifically after 2018, we have witnessed a relative silencing of the guns. I don't say really 100% silencing of the gun, relative silencing of the guns. But after the graduation of the first batch of the unified forces, where we are in a debate of moving towards the final phase of the unification of the forces as a part of Chapter 2, we start witnessing what you call tactful dragging of feet from the political leaders in implementing. Remember, I like normally to quote this as we are marking anniversary of the language that was being used around commencement of the final phase of the unification of forces. First, we have been told it will be next week. Next week died with that next week, almost for a period of 6 months. Then came next month fat without any results. Now we start using the language soon. And I think the language soon is continuing. If I'm not mistaken, even this year, we have been promised that we are supposed to roll out the phase 2 of the unified forces in this month of September. And now September is coming to an end. I'm quite sure they will also again say, no, we'll push it to another day. And of course, government was established, and the government was really dragging, I have to say, dragging feet in terms of implementing some of the provisions of that access, specifically chapter that associated with the reforms, like chapter 4, where there's huge reforms and where the value of the access for the common benefit of citizens is associated with. Then you have chapter 5, where the transitional justice is. You have chapter 6, where the election, the constitutional making process enshrined. Of course, chapter 8 is more about like the supremacy or the mechanisms, and then the role that the region and the IGAD is going to play, or AU. So I'd like to say, for the last, out of the 7 years, the first 2 years, of course, we have seen it, and then it only break off into a crisis. Then came on the season of 2018, and I would like to say what we are witnessing is that deterioration in terms of the status of the agreement is getting daily bad, and specifically after the incident of March, from the 3rd and the 7th of March in Nasir, where we have the last meeting of the presidency, where I attended personally, and then we hope that after the meeting of the presidency, after I attended, and I remember I attended with this shirt, by the way. I attended that meeting with the same shirt, and we came out to make a statement of resuming things could have better, but didn't took us a number of days. Immediately, His Excellency First Vice President was placed under house arrest, and yesterday it was pronounced that he's going to face the law. Since that time until now, we are losing the public trust and confidence on the agreement, though we can hear statements coming from some of the leaders that the agreement is on track, there's no problem with the agreement is okay. Yes, it's okay. But go and ask citizens in some parts of the country that are witnessing the violence. If you don't want to start from side of Upper Nile, go and ask people in Lasso, go and ask people in places like Panyume, go and ask people in area like Meridi, where we have lost our own soldiers who are supposed to protect our 7 lives of our SSPDF. Would you say, let God rest their soul in internal peace? Ask some streets that are outside Juba, go to Upper Nile, go to Nasir, go to Longochu, go to Fangak, go to some areas. See them tell you, we don't feel that's our access. Our access for us is already absent. We don't see it as the interest of unification of forces. And if you go to the leadership level, as the leaders were saying, the agreement is in right track, the agreement is in right footing, then the legitimate question you throw is, why are we seeing this political statement, or these security or military statements coming out? Remember, some few days, we have had a statement from the spokesperson of the SSPDF that we have recaptured Tonga from the opposition. Remember, that statement must be made very clear. We have seen a statement from Lamboth of the SPLA who say we have fought with some of the forces of the government in a place called Nabiema in Tombra. We have captured this amount of weaponry. We have regained this. They have lost. If the agreement is in good track, why should official spokespersons of the military wing of the parties, signatory to our access, issue statements of we have countered, we are supposed to be attacked, we have revenge, we have recaptured, we have faced them, they have confronted us? Why all those statements? The agreement is in track. That means actually even the security arrangement is already under question because we can see official statements coming out there. So for me, this language agreement is in track is a political statement, of course. If you want to retain gain in, it's there. Yes, we know in places like Juba, state capitals, the relative stability we witness is because anchored on the spirit of the agreement. But the question comes, is agreement really in its letter and all this? So for me, there's a challenge that faces the agreement. So I would say the description may be described in ICU. And you know what does it mean by ICU in a medical term? And that's political ICU.
All right. And now, today marks, of course, 7 years. Now, how far has the agreement being implemented? If you can, of course, throw that to any other ordinary person who will be listening to us right now.
The government official, if you remember the last extension, the government official in statement say only 30% of the agreement was implemented. 70 is subject for the roadmap to be delivered. Now, if you see how much of the 30% is on holding, I would say it's 50-50. We have lost 15 out of the 30%. So we may have 15. How do we assess the 15 lost? The 15 lost is in line of the what do you call the military confrontation that we're seeing in some parts of the country, from Upper Nile to Equatoria. If you see all those confrontation, tells you very clear that we have lost 15% of the gained 30%. And this is for the 7 years. Now the question is, if in 7 years you are able to deliver 30% of the agreement, in which you have already lost 15% of the agreement in a shortest period of less than a year, how many years do you want to achieve 100%? We should go for 40 or 30 years or 50 years to achieve 100% of the our access. So for me, what is the problem? What is the problem that made only 30%? That as we have had, there's no resources, there's no money around. And then you can hear that as this money, we have a lot of challenges. The question is, South Sudan is not broke. Actual financing the agreement is not a priority. This is number one from some people. And some people have become wealthy in the name of the implementation agreement. That's why today, if you ask, can we audit the 7 years expenses? There's a goodwill from the leaders of the country in releasing money, but some people walk out with this money. And I'll tell you, as an activist right now, we have people who are claiming their money from the supply of the food for the first phase of the unification of forces when the agreement technical implementation is in South Sudan Hotel in Bolo, and which is the enough migrated. Some people still remember these Bolo premises We have still resources are demanding, but these people have lived out from there. So it tells you that the political commitment, I don't use the word political will. There's a political will for dragging, but there's no political will for implementing. So political will is a big term. But the political commitment to see a genuine transitioning of the country from violence to peace, for some people, it is a selective decision. It's not a decision that they want to avail it. Selectively, they can work on it. Because if you say there's no more money, we have seen some events in the period of 7 years. We have seen huge expenses of resources from the public funds, not for priorities that are agreement, for priorities that are outside the agreement. One of the things I can use is, you see how many kings have got millions of SSP, even some thousands of dollars for some kings events that we have seen in across the country. Some kingdoms in their events, they have received V8s. So you can see very clear that the priority is, by some people, has been selected towards something that they don't have interest to see the agreement is being implemented. The other thing that it is existing is that the class of the political leaders that were tasked by various institutions of the agreement to implement, they have their personal grievances, which is historical since 1983. And I keep saying the cost of achieving stability in this country is not associated with citizens' culture of violence. No, it's associated with the personal grievances of the political elites that we have. So these political elites have turned their personal grievances that either associated with the promotions, with opportunities during the time when late hero Garang was alive, which they are backfiring it now, they want to pay back in the current moment, have become one of the central underlining factor for dragging feet in transition the country from violence to peace. So they have a personal grievances that is historical. So this has let us down. That sum up in a very strong statement that our political class have deficit in trust and confidence for working together for gaining stable and peaceful South Sudan. And that's what we're paying for.
All right, Edmund, 7 years down the road, and if you take a look at the implementation of the agreement, it's less than 40%. You said it clearly. Now, what does this particularly mean to the ordinary citizens?
One, it means continuous absence of adequate security for their safety and protection. And we have seen in some parts of the country, protection of civilians and their safety is really under question. This deadly communal violence that is going on across the country. And personally, I was involved in multiple numbers of reconciliation that are deadly among the people. And these violence are politically motivated. That's one thing. The second thing is that continuous hunger that we have to live in our own country, in places like POCs, in our own country. And hunger continue becoming a dominant factor, food insecurity. And these have led to deterioration of the economic situation. For the ordinary citizens, no salary for almost a period of 1 year. And people start using roadblocks, become a source of income. And if today you see how important the whistle for traffic police officer that the Minister of Finance. Because if I go with the whistle, one whistle be jiblay for two, one whistle be jiblay gada. So people have to level that you have to use certain means in order to have access to income, which are supposed to be provided to you by the government. So for me, all that's the meaning. So look at the hospitals. You go to El Sabah Hospital today. I was in El Sabah Hospital 2 days ago. You find 3 children in the same bed. And one child is on oxygen, one child is in a situation. Those are the children of the ordinary citizen.
All right.
Ask yourself, those who have a political responsibility, are their children in that hospital? Are they sharing the same bed? Some of them, their children are in Nairobi, in a very sophisticated bed. But where do they get the income from?
All right.
So for me, those are some of the description and the values that we have witnessed in the 7 years that are associated with the agreement, is that the common citizens have not gained. And this goes to what one of the honorable members have said about this UAE agreement, say it benefits the elites, not benefiting the citizens. So for these 7 years, the agreement have benefited the elites more than the common citizen.
All right. Now, briefly, let's talk about some of the provisions within the agreement. Now, which key provision to you as a civil society is still pending?
Building a national army that pay no political allegiance and that put protection and safety of the citizen as a priority. That's not been implemented. We have too many militias around the country that even can threaten our own national army. That's one thing that is completely not implemented. reforms that are enshrined in the finance and institutional reforms that makes these institutions function as institutions of the country, that saves citizens without any discrimination, without any selectivity. Those provisions of the reforms are not yet delivered. Transparency and accountability in the use of the resource of the country. South Sudan is not broke. We are rich. We have enough resources. But unfortunately, we have leaders that when they agree, they loot the citizen. When they disagree, they kill the citizen. So the check and balance provisions of the agreement is not yet properly executed. Then come to question of, let us heal the wounds we have, which we can count them. We can go as back as 1955. The transitional justice is not been informed. It's not been implemented. The element of having the social contract between citizen and the government, and that's the constitution, is not yet been delivered. It's been dodged in terms of financial priorities. So we are living in a fragile state that its foundation of bringing the citizen to believe the state exists is not being implemented. So those are key provisions that I like to bring forward. And please, the agreement is so much linked to the best interest of the citizen in Chapter 4. We have not done anything in Chapter 4, financial management. For example, you see the Commissioner General of Revenue Authority, which I appreciate him for that, and I appreciate the President for appointing him as a commissioner, because he's a commissioner who South Sudanese that can come out publicly and say, for the last 8 months, we're able to collect 1 trillion SSP. But the question that follows is, can Minister of Finance tell us how that 1 trillion SSP been used for the best interest of the citizens? This public finance management is not yet been delivered. And even the aspiration that let us not use oil money for paying service. Let's use oil money to invest into agriculture, to invest into infrastructure, is not yet been translated. Yeah. So there's over 80% of the aspiration of the citizen that were enshrined in the R-Access were being ignored. But that 20 or 30% of the aspiration that is associated with buying more V8s and having more offices, more titles, it's been quickly delivered.
All right. Now, these 2018 revitalized peace agreement have witnessed some extension. Now, the transitional period has been extended several times. In your and other political figures are coming up that we are doing this for the sake of the country to be very stable to you. Do this extension also delay the implementation of the peace process?
Actually, this too much extension is a clear indicator that demonstrates there's a deficit in trust and confidence for the political class to work together. Remember, with high respect and honor, His Excellency President have said under his leadership, the country will never return back to war. Some parts are already in war. And more than 4 times extension that were been done. And whenever there's an extension, there's a promise that, remember, the first, when we signed the agreement as access, we say it was an impost. When we went revitalized, we say it was impost. And remember, between the period of access, taking its transitional period, there was extension. 6 months, 100 days. Then it takes its transitional period. From transitional period, we extended for 2 years, where we pronounce with our own words, we say, this time the roadmap, it is our own South Sudanese making. We're going to deliver it. It's as if we're promising citizens that in the next 6 months, you'll see what we wish as the best, as a roadmap. Was it delivered? None. And we keep on, in every extension, we only say 30%, 30%, 30% more than 4 times. And is it a new 30%? Is it all 30%? So you keep on rebranding the 30%. So this tells you very clear that if we continue with the same approach, more further extensions are imminent. Can they deliver more than 30%? Where we are now, as we commemorate the 7th anniversary, actually the 30%, it have reduced, as I said, to 15%. Then we're going to invest on 15% again to regain another 30%. For how long? So for me, it's a question that I don't only blame the leadership of the country, but I blame that there are so much powerful, influential spoilers of a political transition in the country from violence to peace around the leadership of the country, around all the parties. And the other thing that you can see, as we are commemorating the 7th anniversary of the R-Access, the signature of the R-Access, something that nobody want to talk about it, and I want to bring real forward here in these deliberations. There's no party that is signatory to R-Access that doesn't have internal crack. By the way, it seems the internal crack within the IO sounds to be more vibrant and more visible. By the way, even within SOA, there's a cracks. Even within members of SOA, there's a cracks. Some of these parties have split into 2. So what does it tell you? It tells you that actually the R-Access, it is a political tool that sustains the political elites to manage their differences on the expenses of the suffering of the citizen.
Now, recently we have witnessed, of course, a twist of event where one of the signatories of the revitalized peace agreement was arrested. How does this affect trust among the parties and the future of the agreement?
This, in simplest word, have raised the bar of deficit in trust and confidence higher. Instead of reducing it, decreasing it, have raised it higher. And now, of course, we have seen trial is coming on the way. That's one of the things. And you also have seen how the same deficit in trust and confidence have affected the party that it comes from within the IO. Now you have two wings, complete wings. We're repeating 2016 again. But this time, the repetition of 2016 scenario is happening in a moment that the principle is not on run. But then the principle is in run, that's why we went for revitalization. Now the principle is facing a trial. And as I said, it's not only the SPLM-IU that have that internal crack. Even within some members of the SOA, I'm aware that there are cracks within them. These cracks, all it affects lack of reaching a national political consensus for transitioning the country from violence to peace. Actually, they're doing a much that it is keep on sustaining the country to experience instability than stability. You see, that's how much this all exercise, these events have affected the implementation of the R-Access.
All right. Now, people in some areas are still facing that insecurity and violence. And what can be done to avert this situation?
Everything for me rests upon the leadership of the country. And normally I like to tell people that His Excellency President sometimes have wisdoms, that he do make what you call decisive decision. And this word decisive decision I can give you some events that he have made. When we are prior the referendum of South Sudan, there were so many militias under Khartoum regime that were designed to undermine South Sudan to go to the polling station to vote for referendum. President made a decisive decision. He called for South-South dialogue. And that has suppressed that particular strategy that was designed. The second decisive decision is when the 32 states were declared. And remember, some people have reached to the level saying, under the sun, no any power can convince the president to take the pen and reverse his decision to 10 states. He made a decisive decision. He brought back 10 states. Those are very, very instrumental decisions that he have made decisively. This particular moment required the same decisive decision of the president for dialogue.
What
to
kind
say,
of decisions, for example?
What do you want to say? Enough is enough with our political stalemate. Let's all sit down and let's talk. A one-day dialogue among the political class can reach consensus that can save this country. It can save more suffering of citizens in the face of the floods that nobody talks about them. Can save the country from so many insecurity like what we are witnessing in Tombra, what we are witnessing in some parts of the country. Can save the country to provide protection of civilians. Look, locally, children have been kidnapped. Parents were killed, their children kidnapped. 2 days ago, chief of an area was killed and children were kidnapped. All this is putting lives. Look at the incidences that are happening on Juba Nimule Road. Look what happened in Meridi. We have to lose lives of our own sons that volunteer to be in uniform. We have lost their lives. All those incidences just require a decisive decision that let us have dialogue. So what is it needed? The decisive decision for dialogue to be commissioned by the president and for people to sit down and discuss. Yes, some people will say, what about the results of the national dialogue? The results of national dialogue was misinterpreted by the spoilers of a stable South Sudan by telling the president that, look here, national dialogue say you and His Excellency First Vice President, who is now Machar, must go, which they could have interrogated. What does it mean to go? Is it now? Is it tomorrow? Is it next tomorrow? How do we go? Because, okay, you tell me, Edmond, from the studio, you go. But tell me the methodology how to go. And how long does it take me to go and when? So before you, then they spoiled everything and they made the leadership of the country to put the national dialogue pending. This time, His Excellency President to make this because it's a question of legacy. Where does it end? And by the way, the trial of the first vice president, it have two scenarios. One scenario likely it may take the country back to war. Another scenario is that it may raise the bar of ethnic tensions and competitions very high. So the best is let's sit down and dialogue. And I know His Excellency President is known for that. He can commission it. That's why we keep on appealing that that's track record of his decisive decision. The moment has come now where the country is totally in a stalemate of wondering what will happen next tomorrow.
Edmond, how can you convince the citizens who said we have a national dialogue, we have a Tumaini initiative and the revitalized peace agreement, but all these have not really bear a tangible
results? Yes, you have multiple, not only you have the R-Access, you have the national dialogue, you have Tumaini, you have Kitigwang first, you have Kitigwang 2. You know, because Kitigwang is the first one which was signed with Olong, then later on Olong break out of Simon Garwich. We have Port Sudan agreement, by the way, Sudan, which is I think is for 2 or 3 days with 3-4 pages. All these processes have fulfilled what one of our elders have said, what Maulana Abel Alier used to say, that Sudan have too many agreements and none of them has been implemented. So you sign an agreement today, you violate it tomorrow. We have exercised that practice. For me, everything rests around the leadership of the country taking a personal decision. As I said, the spoilers seems to be more powerful. And by the way, in South Sudan, who benefits from violence? Nobody, by the way. There's no South Sudanese can say we are benefiting from the violence. Being an armed opposition or being an armed government agent, none of us is gaining from the violence. Actually, the violence is making us pay a very expensive price in all corners that we're going. So it means peace is something that we need it because it's a prerequisite for our stability, is a prerequisite for our development, and we need to develop. So it means if the leadership of the country can commission a process that ensure peace and stability is a priority, then you can convince the citizens. The citizen lost trust that the political class, and this is what I'm saying, if this country is to remain in instability, be it politically or be it economically, or if this state is to be pronounced as a failed state, we're not blaming the citizen. We're blaming the political class, we're blaming the gun class, and we're blaming those who have power of decision, which they have manipulated everything. And that's why you will see when Honorable Adut was appointed, look at her speech, how it treated the social media. When she described peace, for me means a woman in Fangak having access to her family. She lives in peace. Peace for me means somebody in Yambio can go to the farm and farm without insecurity. Look at that particular statement that was made by Honorable Adut. Look how much was it trading in the social media. That yes, this is what we want. Look at the way how she conduct herself to go and visit the elders of the history that have started the foundation of the Republic of South Sudan. How people are trading around it. So the question is, it's a change of attitudes. Citizens will have a trust and confidence on the political leaders if they're able to change their attitudes, walk away from their historical grievances that they have qualified to be the underlying factor of instability in the country. And is that easy? That is easy if they can deal with the spoilers. Because everything failed in this country is an action of spoilers.
All right. 2026 is not far from now, and that's where South Sudan is expected to conduct a general election. Do you think the country is ready? And if not, what should be done?
I will tell you my assessment is that to hold election in December 2026 require a proper shift of political game. The current political game going on is not in favor of elections by 2026. And actually, the current political game is a game of a further extension. The game that is going on now is a game of further extension.
The leaders have come openly to say that...
That's no more extension. I saw it from Honorable Minister of Cabinet Affairs when addressing the Parliament. He told the Parliament very clear, we are not ready for any more extension. Okay, if they're not ready for any more extension, let's go for practicality and technicality of the elections. By December this year, which is almost 2 months from now, the National Election Commission have to declare that the country is ready for elections per the provisions of the Electoral Act. Does the Electoral Commission receive money? No. If you read the report of the visiting delegation of AU Peace and Security Council and the chair of Algeria recently in their report, they made it very clear. They expose a very sensitive information. They say they met with the leadership of the Electoral Commission. They say His Excellency President promised them that they will get money and the money will be transferred to them. But since the day of the promises, until the AU came in, the money was not given until AU was leaving. The AU met in their report. Look at, they met in the report. So the question comes, who is that not listening to the directives of the president? When president made a directives, who again have a power to undo that directives by saying, let us revisit? You would have told the boss. You would have told His Excellency, because His Excellency is a symbol of the nation. Now look, a symbol of the nation has been exposed in a report for a mechanism that we are member to by saying his promise was not fulfilled. So until today, voter education is not there. People are not being educated how to go and engage in the elections. They are not being registered. Constituents were not declared. So comes December, this will happen. Now, as we speak now, violence is escalating. Insecurity is escalating. You see, before this March incident, you can move from Juba up to Wow on road without any fear. But now you can't move. Somewhere in the middle, you'll find yourself, you're under crisis. So conducive environment of the elections, where is it? Now, let's go for legality. Legality, the election are supposed to be conducted after we have a constitution that informs the law. Where is the constitution? The electoral act that we have right now been amended have to have a lot of ambiguity. This electoral law have something called 0.6. Who is that human being called 0.6? You need to make political decision to round it up to a whole figure. But will you make those decisions? So what is called the prerequisite or even creation, let me use the word prerequisite because it will take me to politics of our access, but what is called a good enough condition for the conduct of the elections that require technicality from the National Election Commission, which National Election Commission cannot deliver those technicalities without political decisions on what? Political decisions. Should we go for elections with that constitution? Should we go for elections with the new constituencies? So if I have to go for elections, new constituency into new population census, so should we go for elections with the old constituencies of 2010? These are political decisions that are required from the political leadership to make NEC to move. This has not yet been done. Resources were not been given to the National Election Commission to move the basics of electoral preparation, the voter education, the civic education, registration of people. And then you need to know people have been displaced. Have they all holding national ID cards when they're going to come to register? Some people say, no, we have run and then we have lost our national ID cards. We have no money to have possession. This need decision to be made. So all these, what is called good enough conditions for the conduct of the election by December 2026 are not yet in place. What need to be done? You can do that if you have the political commitment. And for me, that's what I'm saying. Still, everything you move around, you'll come back to the table. That let us sit around the table and make a genuine conversation among ourselves, where they call it dialogue, you call it round table, that we make some decisions to create political consensus on what is defined as a good enough condition or what you call bare minimum standards for us to go for election in December 2026. Otherwise, December may cut us with that any. Because remember, 22nd September next year, the mandate of the government will expire. You remember the extension on September 22nd of last extension. In 1 day, in 4 hours, you have to do constitutional amendment. That by the requirement of the law is supposed to be go for 2 months. But they have to do in 4 hours that amendment. Right. This time round, it's not going to be easy.
Right.
Because one of the parties that can accelerate the 4 hours is no longer with you in the agreement, which is the vice president. And remember, but then the deputy first speaker, Oyet, was the one who raised the motion that we are in a critical moment, this moment, let's pass every stage of the readings in 1 day. And people say, seconded, endorse. This time, endorse is not going to be there because people are going to question endorse on whose credibility. So for me, this is the challenge. And the challenge is very simple. If the leadership can make a decision that let's sit on the table. Enough is enough. With the confusion, with the stalemate, let's talk and let's reach consensus.
Before I invite our patient audience to ask their good question, Edmoni, looking at the 2018 Revitalized Peace Agreement, Friends of South Sudan, the international community also invested in this either through their resources or ideas and so many ways. But this time around, with all that happening as today, we mark 7 years of this agreement. Do you think the partners of the Revitalized Peace Agreement, are they disappointed, or what best description can you give to that?
They are disappointed. You can see from the statements. You can see from the appeals. Let's South Sudanese go for dialogue. Almost in every, if you look at the latest reports, look at the report of the AU Peace and Security Council, it called for the dialogue. Look at the visit of the special envoys that came to this country, is calling for the dialogue. Look at the letter of Pope before he died, the late Pope is calling for the dialogue. So if you look at the latest Friends of South Sudan messages towards, I said, please opt to use dialogue to resolve your political differences. Avoid the use of violence. And seems we stood up by saying, no, we need to resolve our crisis through violence, not through dialogue. So friends are so disappointed, and you can see the level of withdrawal from South Sudan. Embassies are withdrawing, people are cutting down the humanitarian, and it became a curse. It came at a moment that also the Friends of South Sudan are receiving conservative governments by saying we are tired in paying for others. This time our money have to use for the best interest of our citizen. You can see cut down of funding. Foreign aid. You can see the humanitarian aid has been cut down. Look at our refugees, they came voluntarily, they have to come to Eastern Equatoria.
All right.
Okay.
Dear listener, today marks the 7 years since the signing of the 2018 Revitalized Peace Agreement in Addis Ababa. And this evening I'm joined by one of the signatories to this agreement. And we are taking a look at the challenges and what needs to be done. After this break, when we come back, you will be in position to call us on 0911-022-986-986 and ask your question to Edmond Yakani.
It's a Baghdad Diamond Wenisuma iRadio على نمرة التليفون 0911 986 986 au itabiresilu risala ala nimra 0913
marhaba fi zaman bitasa tuwali tasal manina luenda kaswal wala tali kasiriki de wa indina mai mukhalama fi khadai radio ay radio نعم ارجع تاني نخيط شبكة ولا شنو 09 وايد ولا 22 986 لو عندك سؤال خاص لإدمون يخاني في داخل الاستوديو بجاي راديو.
الو
نعم
مدرما جيمي
أستاذ كمال.
أنا بسلم الأخ الاسم شنو ده مع الدف بتاعك ده كلام اللي هو كلم Edmond Yakani Kelim de. He knows better than us, Kulana, Alua, the citizens with our Southern Sudan. Because he's part and parcel of this agreement. Now, by saying like this, all these who are obstacles for the agreement, now he's talking to the problem. Why not inside there to those? So that it will be responded with those colleagues without who are the partners of the Vita. Now, what he's telling us is exactly what is happened. He knows better than us. And the question is that he is part and parcel of the agreement. Why not to talk inside there?
Thank you.
We want him to talk inside there.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Edmond, what's your reaction to the concern raised?
Yes. If you come to the implementation of the agreement, and I want him to listen very clear. He used the word, we are part and parcel of the agreement. We are not part and parcel of the government that hold the decision for money use. We are not part and of the government that tells when forces should be unified. We are not parcel and part of the presidency that make decisions. You need to know that. We are stakeholders. We only sit in the mechanism with the limitation of appealing and urging. You need to understand that. You need to understand that where we sit, we have no power to say, move this money from here to there. He would have said we are part and parcel if we sit like, for example, if Edmond come today, I'm a part of the Ministry of Finance, or I'm a part of the Office of the President, I'm part of one of the ministries. Like the way you see Minister and Under Secretary, Director General. We are not there. We drive no V8s. We don't hold any money. We don't have any decision. Only is when we see things are not okay as a stakeholders, we come under the mechanism of the agreement to tell them that, look here, things are not going well. You have the power to move that money. Why are you not using that money for it? I wish you had that power, that we can make the money. Because also this is where sometimes you start sending messages to citizens to see that we, the stakeholders and the parties, were equal in terms of the implementation agreement. No. Let me inform the citizen very clear. We sit in the mechanisms to watch, monitor. We don't make a decision how to use the revenue that were collected from the taxes, whether in the market or from the oil, how to be used for the agreement. So these things of what do you call putting people all into one basket, it's a lack of knowledge. That means he is not aware of who we are as agreement implementation is concerned and who is the government. I wish he would have said we are part and parcel if we're part of the government. And I know some callers that their position is very clear. They have nothing to offer you that more constructive except blaming. So and that's why we're moving that, no, look here, as a stakeholders, we sit in the oversight. But the politicians sit in the government and they run the money. They don't make a decision. I wish I could have made power to make a decision of the money. We could have implemented even in 4 days only.
Via our Facebook page, we have caller Roper Jr. that from the beginning, who is a watchdog for especially those violating the peace agreement and what punishment can be given to anyone who violated. You are one of the signatories. Tell us more.
Yes, of course. Also, I would like to make that when we say stakeholders are signatory, we don't sign with the political authority like that. We can have a power. I want to remind that the violations that were committed, unfortunately, it is also condoned by the parties. I'll give you an example. Right now, it may sound very bad with the SPLM-IO. When we were in Tumaini, who failed Tumaini? Wasn't the SPLM-IO? When they withdraw, when they wrote their letters, and I'm one of the person I told the SPLM-IO in Nairobi. If you make Tumaini to fail, from Tumaini, it will turn a tsunami. And you know what is tsunami? Tsunami is waves that you cannot control. Is it not now tsunami? So some of them are telling us, when we tell guys, don't withdraw. Let us try to gain things to move. They withdraw from the Tumaini. They wrote a huge letter deciding this is an internal coup making. And now they are writing a letter that also coup has been made against agreement. So the question is that who invite that attitude that is not cooperative? So for me, the spoilers are being entertained by the parties. The parties are not ready to punish the spoilers. These defections, defecting from party A to party B. Defections politically, it have no violations. But defection militarily, it have violations. And you can say a group of this particular party military wing have joined us. And they accommodate by receiving them, which is completely a prohibited act by the agreement.
Yeah, right.
So, and if you sit at RJMEC, for example, RJMEC where some of my colleagues sit, they push for punitive measures against the violations. The party say punitive measures against who? So you see? So in the past, they were embracing the violations for their own gains. But sometimes, what goes round comes round.
Let's keep the conversation going. iRadio.
Yes, iRadio?
Yes.
I'm talking to Chris from Wow.
Chris, welcome. What's your quick question to Edmond Yakani?
Okay, swali la Edmond Yakani. Ito moke fitako mtabigifu as you represent the citizen, as a voice of the citizen. When you become one of the mechanisms to go to wara or dine or hajamashi, then your voice is not effective. Then how far that danam narafinu Edmond Yakani da or by the civil society da kalam bitam go with bora bitana shankida be small.
نعم شكرا.
نمرة 2 البيس ميكانيزم ولا الطريقة اللي هو ماشي بوها سي ما بيردينا وما شايفين انه at the end بيكون في elections. لأنه في some other things that are not clear up to this time مفترض يعملوا عشان إنه نتوقع إنه في شنو سلام. فالأهم شنو يا إدمون يا كاني أنا دايرين الرولز بتاعكم اللي يكون قوي very effective. يعني انتوا تكونوا يعني the advisors بالنسبه للحكومه دوروا الطريقه اللي ممكن هم يقدروا يمشوا فيه.
نعم شكرا.
عشان انه البلد يكون حاجه.
شكرا كريس. ناسما من دبر راديو. ارجع تاني في 09 وايد ولا 229 راديو.
Madrama Jam.
Yes, Alul.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. How is Jungle Estate, and what's your quick question to Edmond Yakani in the studios?
Jungle Estate is fantastic. Thank you. I bring my greeting to Edmond Yakani in the studio and all the listeners. My question to Amy is, now we have seen that the implementation of a peace agreement that was signed in 2018, which ended the 5-year civil war, hasn't seen any progress. And yesterday, news broke about the indictment of the first vice president, who is a senator to that agreement. Does he think that the indictment of the first vice president will derail the peace deal, or it will not have any impact on the peace deal?
Thank you.
My question.
Thank you very much. Another quick one. iRadio. Still get back to us and let me find out from these iRadio. Yes. Good evening.
Let me greet you and Edmond Yakani.
Yes, thank you, Joseph.
My question is 7 years of the agreement today. And this agreement, when you go to the document, is grabbing power from the people and also grabbing resources from the people, and is supposed to be lasting peace, and there is insecurity. Even this agreement also is not giving privileges of the citizen. And you are part of the revitalized agreement. You are signatory and you are supposed to represent voice of the voiceless, voice of the civil society. And we find you always calling them
and they're saying like this, and their speeches are, we call them as a interest speeches. So what is your role as a civil society for rescuing the people of South Sudan?
Thank you.
To get their power back and to get their resources back. Because now we see the resources are for the few people and the power is for the few people.
Few people.
Thank you.
Edmund will answer you. Let me talk to two more lucky callers and then we call it a show. Hi, Radio.
Hi, Radio. How are you?
Tamam, community advisor.
Let me welcome our guest in the studio.
Thank you.
My question is very simple. And I want to know from Yamokani, the voice of the people, who is the obstacle to peace agreement? Who is supporting peace not to come to South Sudan? Why I say so? When you got two parties fighting and there is no support come out from somewhere, those people will be reconciled and they will go to one direction. If there is no person who is obstacle to the peace of South Sudan, peace of South Sudan can end up within 2 years' time, and we talk to another thing. Who is the obstacle among the 5 superpowers plus the politician of South Sudan?
Thank you. Hi, Radio. Aywa, William. Mawatal. نعم مشكلة وين صوتك تزيد أرفع شوية كده. شكرا برضو. نعم. شكرا ويلسون. نعم أنا ونسمع آخر مكالمة في زمن بتاعسا وسط زمن 09 وايد ولا 2 ناسما من آخر لبند على راديو.
Hey, Madrama, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
I love you this game. Yeah, I want to ask Edmund, as long these politicians actually have such a situation, things are getting stuck in our hand, we have seen. What do you think that the peace will not start when the court is going to be delayed? Because we believe that the first vice president now is going to the court, and with the peace have to wait for him to be confirmed either he is coming back or not coming back. So what do you think if they delay the court cases? The peaceful process will not delay the implementation of the rest of the things to be implemented. That's one. Another thing is that what do you do as a civil society to push for the court such that it finishes in a due time, such that they don't again play a game of delaying at the joining. At the end of the day, they extend the transition because of the court.
Thank
then
you.
the third question is that what do you think that South Sudanese to do next in case they attempt to attend? Because these are the points that I want to understand. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, Diang Deng should be my last caller for now. And let me give this humble time to Edmond Yakani to answer some of your questions here. I read you.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yeah, I can't go one by one, but I will sum up because of the time. One, there's this question of that we are voice of the people. What are we doing to hold the parties accountable? We have done our part, honestly. I would like to convey to the citizens as we commemorate the 7th anniversary, we have done. Then lately, it was 2 days ago. On the 9th and the 10th, we met as a stakeholders who signed the agreement, and we made a very strong statement. Or if you say our statement, it holds disappointment so much. Because our limitation is that we can't make any decision on the use of the public resources. Ours is only to ask. So we have done our part, and we have several times exposed the political parties that are running away with the money. And we have made several statements that will appeal to them to embrace dialogue. And they can see it's there in the media. Those are very clear positions that we have represented citizens, and we have demanded always that give us, for example, when the revenue authority say 1 trillion was collected, we asked them, tell us how was it being used for? Because I wish we were the one collecting and we were the one implementing. We could have take responsibility to answer that. But we question, because our limitation is only to question. We ask them, can the Minister of Finance tell us why there's no salaries? Why Awami? And recently we've been in Torit. When we question the status of the livelihood of our soldiers, some people say, no, you have crossed the right line. Why should I feel I crossed the right line if I'm protecting the needs of my own people, the needs of our people who are in uniform? So when we call for the benefits of our soldiers, we're told that we have crossed the red line. So for me, those are some of the things that we've been facing. And this is something I like to tell citizens, that we are not condoning anything. We are always head on our leaders. And somebody like me, sometimes I meet the president and the first vice president before. I tell them point blank that, look here, things are running out of hand. So for me, that is, where is the problem? That question of who are the people delaying the agreement? Who are those people who are obstructing the agreement? The agreement is obstructed because the principles that have the responsibility, for example, members of the presidency, I always say they are to be blamed. But the members of the presidency are held hostage by the spoilers. The spoilers around the president, the spoilers around the first vice president, the spoilers around other members of the presidency are too many, and they're so powerful to the level that they don't care. And unfortunately, their families are not here. The price our citizens are paying, their families are not paying it. So for me, it's now the members of the presidency, from His Excellency President, before the trial of His Excellency First Vice President and other Vice President, to tell these spoilers. And remember, multiple times I've made a statement in the radio here that President need to distance the spoilers away from being close. And it's been several times. Even RJMEC report mentioned it very clearly. It's published in the media outlets that this agreement is drilled for the 7th period because of the impact of the spoilers. But are the spoilers not friends of the leaders? And that's what sometimes you say, if you have your friend who is a criminal and you cover him up, you'll be accounted for that crime. So that's why I've been calling the leaders that make a decision, please push these spoilers out, because everything is under your hands that you can exercise. So for me, that's the question towards the spoilers. The trial, to be honest with you, will derail the implementation agreement. One, the Council of Ministers is not going to function as smooth as it is. The meetings of RJMEC is going to not function because the principle, like first vice president, the status need to be determined. The governance cluster is going to have a problem because there's no chair of the governance cluster, because the chair is under trial. And remember, why I say it will affect the agreement, these are the evidence. President didn't dismiss His Excellency First Vice President because also he respects democratic principle. He only suspended him so that he can attend to the court, because he can't sit at the court with that immunity. So that immunity was withdrawn from him for a while. What about if this court calls for 3 years? The office of the first vice president will remain under suspension until the court comes to an end. So if the office of the first vice president is under suspension, anything under the first vice president is under what? Suspension. Though there's a crossing. So I saw in the media people say even he can be replaced. How can you replace him when his name and the name of the president were asserted in the agreement through a decision of head of IGAD summit? It is the IGAD leaders who sit all and make a decision that this time round, with the experience of 2013, we need to name the president and the first vice president. And that's the president exercise his powers within his limit of democracy by suspending, not dismissing. He would have dismissed and replaced immediately. But because he knows what does it mean to dismiss and to replace without a certain substantial evidence. So the question comes, will the judges be quick? And that's why one of our appeal that we are making as a stakeholders is that, one, let this court be on a speedy process, and let the court be transparent and open for public, so that we provide the trust. So this trial must be transparent and must be open for the public, and must be a trial that is not associated with things like intimidation, harassment of whether defense lawyers or the first vice president, or intimidation against the citizens that will come to witness to see how the proceedings, because this is a political science case. Some students of political science want to go and attend. Some researchers want to go and attend and write research about it in the field of the law. So it means to be transparent, speedy, without any political interference, and without any intimidation and harassments of the whole process of the court proceedings. And the court proceedings need to adhere to the ethics of being fair trial, being on the basis of best practice of court practices in trying such cases. So that will have implication and will drill us here in principal agreement. To conclude with is that what can the citizen do? For me, one, citizen abstain from supporting violence. Politicians are politicians in South Sudan when you're able to stand with them if they're championing violence. Like, look what is happening in Tombra. That's why for people like us, we are documenting those incidents and we will name some people. I know we're supposed to name people of Tombra today, but we suspended because we are investigating the recent incident in Tombra.
All right.
So for me, citizens have to abstain from violence. And now, one message, citizens need not to consume misinformation. Any information, verify. Any hate speech, abstain from it.
And when finally, some taken hope that 2018 revitalized peace agreement is the only hope for them. Now, with all these other challenges you have so far mentioned, what is the hope and what's your message also to the citizen?
The hope to the citizen is that we are going to hold meetings with each of the parties signatory to our access, which is like the call made by our brother Chris from WOW. We'll meet the SPLM, we'll meet SPLM-IO, all the parties will meet them just to tell them, please, you have still an opportunity in your hand, just make a decision, abstain from the violence, let's go for dialogue. That's the hope that we want to tell the citizens. And I would like to say, based on that, as we're commemorating the 7th anniversary of the R access, if our political leaders did not change their attitudes of managing public governance through crisis, this country will continue as a hostage to violence and instability for long.
Thank you, Edmund, for coming and sharing your thought with us.